According to the most recent U.S. Census Bureau, on average, 21% of all first marriages fail. 11% of the most recent documented marriages in the United States are second marriages. 3% are already on their third marriage. If we, as a society, refuse to change, then it is more than likely that 40% of all marriages this year alone could end in divorce. And who really pays the price? The children. 40% of today's children are being raised without a full-time father. 28% of children living with a divorced parent live in a household with an income below poverty level. Half of all American children will witness the breakup of a parent's marriage. Of these children, close to half will also see the breakup of a parent's second marriage. Teenagers in single-parent families and in blended families are 300% more likely to need psychological help within any given year than teens from intact nuclear families. People who come from broken homes are almost twice as likely to attempt suicide than those who do not come from broken homes. Sherri Mills, author of I Almost Divorced My Husband, but I Went on Strike Instead, and Marriage 101 for Men, Why Taking Out the Trash is a Turn-On, is hoping to change one household at a time by being brutally frank about the lifelong implications of divorce and its effect on children. She helps married couples balance relationships and ultimately helps save marriages.
Welcome back. Sherri Mills joining us today. How are you, Sherri?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, so good to have you. Started out as a hairdresser, now an author, and writes about marriage. What inspired you to write this book? This was your first one. I Almost Divorced My Husband, but I Went on Strike Instead.
Oh, what made me write the book is because in the beauty salon, you see divorces that didn't have to happen. And it's a lot of it is because of the fact that there's two people working in the family and only one of them comes home and does the work at home.
Sherri, you're a therapist when you do hair.
Yeah.
No, you really are. We tell you our deepest, darkest secrets sitting in that chair for however long.
True.
What did you hear that made you go, okay, that's what's wrong, there's a common thread in all of these marriages?
It was a common thread. In fact, some of the other marriages that ended for some other reason told me later that the reason, they don't even know why they got divorced, but they were so sick and resentful for their husbands not doing anything that by the time some little thing happened, they got divorced. And I've got a lot of flack from a lot of people who are divorced and had reasons for divorce. So I don't want to say if somebody's in a bad relationship or anything like that, I want to say right now that they need to get out, that if it's being abusive or anything.
So did you actually go on strike?
I did.
And what does that mean? What does that mean in your relationship? What did it mean for you and your husband?
Well, it was a really hard thing to do. It took me about 3 months to plan it because I had a 10-page contract. He worked at a clothing factory, and he dealt with unions all the time. So I wrote up a 10-page union contract, and it took me 3 months to do that, and then it took me 3 more months to get it through my head that I could stick it out.
Well, because that's his language. You spoke his language.
Exactly.
So I spelled it out for you, and how did he react?
What was the outcome?
Well, the outcome was wonderful. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. And the first thing, when I first told him I was going on strike, I think he was totally in shock for 3 days. But the thing that happened, I was preparing myself for a messy, messy house, and instead, he wanted to show me that he could do it better than I could. So that's really, and it threw me for a loop because I thought, I'm ready for this other thing. But I wasn't ready for this.
So let me clarify, going on strike, you don't necessarily mean leaving the house for a few days. You mean not cleaning the house. That could be strike.
Well, I think it would have been easier to leave the house.
Oh, okay.
I sat down. I would go to work and come home and sit down. I wasn't even a mother. The kids would come to me for things, and I'd say, I'm not your mother either. I'm on strike. Go talk to your dad.
How many times have we all wanted to say that?
Oh my goodness.
You've thought it, and maybe it's come out of your mouth, but you didn't really follow through. You had to make this happen.
I did, and it took me 8 days. It took 8 days of sitting there, and I lost 10 pounds in 8 days.
Because you were stressed.
It stressed
Because of stress. It was so
you out. Tell me about the outcome. How did it change your marriage?
Oh, my word. The very first thing, well, let me tell you what he did when he finally had been doing it for so long. He said, get the kids here because we need to have a meeting. And so I said, are you sure? And he says, yes. He said, I bet you're exhausted. And he said, I am, but you've been doing it all along. He says, this is what you've been doing. And so he didn't do, you know, it didn't give in because he was a whipped person or anything. He actually had lived my life for 8 days and decided that he wasn't ever going to do that to me again. And the very first thing that happened the very next day is my little boy came running up the stairs and said, Mom, where's my blue shirt? And he stuck his finger in his nose and he says, you go find your own shirt. She's got 5 people to take care of and you go find your own shirt.
And you started to cry because you were so excited.
I mean, I couldn't even believe it. I mean, everything that happened. And then when we go on vacation, he would, I'd always have to pack, unpack, cook and clean when I got him where we were. He took care of everything. He would actually get the kids and say, okay, what are you going to bring? What are you going to bring? What are you going to bring? Get it all ready. And then on the way home, he'd say, okay, who's going to bring this in? Who's going to bring that in? Who's going to take care of this? And he never, from that day on, never left everything to me.
His perspective changed.
Oh,
he
definitely.
saw it from your eyes. Don't you think a lot of it's about appreciation?
Oh, it is.
For so many women and men out there, that's your language, and if it's not being spoken, that's where the frustration
I think it's everyone's language. You need to feel appreciated. Now,
and you need to feel respected.
Exactly.
That's what I got. He had a totally new respect for me.
Okay, let's talk about this second book that you wrote. Now this one, what is this one called?
It's Marriage 101 for Men, Why Taking Out the Trash is a Turn On.
Oh. And it is.
It is, truly.
It sure is. Is this for men to read or for women?
It's for men to read, but women will buy it. I said, my publisher said, who do you think is going to buy this book? And I said, it won't be men. It'll be mothers, sisters, grandmothers, sons,
How do you
daughters.
get your man to buy it, or to read it?
Well, and I would say that once they get into it, I had a man that come and bought my book, my other book, and that's why I wrote this book, is because he asked me if I could actually write a book where at least I had 2 chapters where I'm talking to men, because I'm talking to women in this first book.
Right.
And so that's why I wrote it. So I wrote it in man language, and it's actually, I got online and found out what men read, and men have to have a title above every paragraph. Not every chapter, but a title.
Like a summary.
Yeah, so they say, okay, if I like this title, I'll read the paragraph.
So you can skim.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Tony or crew? They're like, yeah, that's actually what I need. And then women, you have to practice strategery and like put it somewhere they can see it and possibly pick it up.
Read it to them. Pick it up and say, look at this part. Look at this part. Look how easy this is. And see, one thing I did, I got a hold of this really famous psychologist, Dr. Joshua Coleman from San Francisco. It took me 6 months to get a hold of him. He wrote The Lazy Husband.
Oh, I've heard of that.
So my first chapter is in his words of exactly what I write in the whole book, and it gives you exactly what it's like, you know, why it's so good to do the work and get sex afterwards, you know.
So,
I'm
so sorry. Keep going.
And so, and one of the things that it says in there, and what I say in my book, is you don't do something just so you can go to bed that night and get whatever, but you have to just keep doing it, so that then she knows that you respect her, and she knows that she's not going to be exhausted the next day and doing every single thing the next day. Because then when that happens, you go to bed and you think, oh, you think you're going to get something? You're crazy.
Sherry, I like to say foreplay starts at 8 a.m.
Oh, definitely.
That's what I like to, maybe sometimes 6 a.m.
I always say,
where it starts.
A woman says, I like hugs and kisses, but most of all, I like you doing dishes.
Oh, I love
So actually, they like that better than bringing home flowers.
So I don't know about you, Nisha, but I'm taking this book home to my man. I'm going to read this book. We're going to have a better marriage.
Go to our website, and so can you. We'll tell you where you can get Sherri's books. I Almost Divorced My Husband, but I Went on Strike Again, and the brand new book, too, that's for your guys. So there's yours. There's the one for your guy, Marriage 101 for Men. Go to abc4.com/dailydish, and we'll link you to all the information. Thank you, Sherri.
Thank you so much.